I'd like to talk a little bit about television, because obviously one of the reasons I'm here is Shark Tank. It's a remarkable success that we're all amazed at. We're thrilled with what it's become. It's a platform to launch businesses. It's the #1 show in America, watched on Fridays, the #1 show watched by families. The fastest growing demographic is 9 to 18-year-old women. Who knows, they must mature faster than guys, I guess. But it continues to grow, and it's phenomenal. And we're going to talk a little bit about that, because people ask me, why do you do so much television? Are you a narcissist? Do you love to see yourself talk? Do you want to turn every channel and see your face? And I'm going to argue today, and we're going to do a little experiment together, that the discipline of business, the science of business, is very binary. Either you make money or you lose it. It's black and white. Television is sheer chaos. And yet, I'm going to show you a marvelous synergy between the two. Now, obviously, Shark Tank is a platform. There's no question about that. And what's occurred on this show is many people have realized that if you can get on it and you have a product in the market, you can grow your sales by 10,000% in 24 hours. But the true test of its power would be to take a commodity, something that is ubiquitous in America, that we can buy anywhere, and see if it went on Shark Tank, would it differentiate the outcome of that company? How powerful is Shark Tank? How powerful has it become? So my theory was, why not finance a commodity, something you can get anywhere? And see if somehow we could build a national brand on something that has no proprietary value whatsoever. That would be the true test of what Shark Tank was. Now, what could that be? Well, let me give you an example. What is more common than a cupcake? Sugar, water, flour, anybody can make it. Along came a company from Cohasset, Massachusetts, called Wicked Good Cupcakes onto the Shark Tank. None of the other sharks were interested, but I had this theory in my mind. Let's test it. So I'm going to show you a couple of minutes of video from this particular deal. We're going to see the actual deal itself, see how it was structured, and then I'm going to show you the numbers, what happened in the first 24, 36 week, months since then. What has happened to Wicked Good Cupcakes? So watch this first. Okay, so what happens to this company? It airs at 9 o'clock on a Friday night. Sales the first month before Shark Tank, or the month prior to airing, the 24,000. Look what happens to it afterwards. Run rate is 450,000 a month. It's going to make 800,000 of free cash flow. Danny, the young girl, 27, just got married. I helped her with her prenup. She has $800,000 going. This company's actually owned by her. It's her and her mother. So this is the fastest growing cupcake company in America right now. It recently got a 10% purchase acquisition from the Fisher family in Chicago, who took the Crumbs retail chain out of bankruptcy. As of next week, this will be in retail across America. We've moved into pies, and we're charging 20% more for gluten-free. I love that. I just absolutely love that. And so the Shark Tank factor is very much alive, and I think in studying what this is it truly is a launch platform. This is clearly a commodity, and it's growing very quickly, and I think America's figured that out. We have 110,000 applications for the current year we're starting to shoot. Everybody understands how this works. But what's really going on here with Wicked Cupcakes is they figured out their customer acquisition costs by being on Shark Tank are zero. They don't spend any money on advertising. What they try and do is stay on television, and because they're a a daughter-mother team, which is very on trend in America now for getting on daytime television, they're ubiquitous. They're everywhere. They've hired lots of new people. We're creating jobs here. Actually, 42 new ones. This is a little outdated, this slide. You see them on every week on one show or another. Good Morning America next week, plotting their success. This mother and daughter have figured out how to stay on television and continue to grow. Now, let me give you some stats about venture capital. Over 50 years, It's a highly risky proposition. If you look at 10 deals over the last 50 years, including the internet bubble, only 2 out of 10 ever return capital. That means you lose 80% of the time. Nothing changes that. So if you look at a typical venture capital firm, even a big one, 80% of the time they lose their money. After 6 years, Shark Tank is now achieving return on capital on 40% of its deals, 4 out of 10. Why? Here's my speculation. For a marginal company that would be spending 12 to 15% on advertising to break through, those costs are removed. They get that for free. So even a cupcake company can enjoy tremendous growth at no cost of acquiring customers. And so this platform is a giant infomercial worth about $12 million a year to a company to get on it. How do I know that? Let me give you a case study that is 48 hours old. How many of you remember Groovebook? Remember this one? 11 months ago, Brian and Julie, a young couple from Chatsworth, California, brought this deal to Shark Tank. Very simple. Takes 100 images off your phone each month and ships you this catalog. Cataloging your life, your kids, your family for $2.99. How is it possible they can do that? Because this groove allows the book to bend 34 degrees so that it's considered a magazine, not a book. It ships for 85 cents as opposed to $2.50. The value is in the groove. They had 14,000 subscribers when they aired. Today they have 500,000. Shutterfly called me up, public company, said, "We must buy this. You're stealing our share." And they offered $7 million for it 11 months later. And I said, "Are you kidding?" Never. They bought it on Thursday for $14.5 million cash. Julie and Brian are multimillionaires 11 months later. The American dream is alive in a very big way, and we watch it happen on Shark Tank. Why is Shark Tank so successful? Why would anybody be watching this? Why would a 9-year-old girl be interested in watching something about business? The networks want to know, the advertisers do, the competitors want to know. There's 7 different shows trying to knock it off right now. I have a thesis. I'll tell you what it is. What are you watching when you watch Shark Tank? You're watching the pursuit of freedom. Is there anything more noble than creating your own wealth and setting yourself free? No. That's what Shark Tank's about. It's the essence of personal freedom. It's not about getting rich. It's about achieving something for yourself that is unique to our society and capitalism. Personal freedom. And that's why I'm here today. I want to talk to you about that. That's what matters. That's what creates everything that's great in America, is the ability to start a business from scratch in your basement, whether it's a cupcake or a Groovebook or thousands of other ideas. Create a business worth millions of dollars, employ hundreds of people, provide for your family, yourself, their families, and all the good things we enjoy from capitalism, which is freedom. Now, there's a lot of sacrifice involved, and I'm speaking to those of you in this room that want to become entrepreneurs. So let's try and learn something from the Shark Tank experience. I want to share with you, other than funny pictures like this, 3 common attributes to all of the deals that got funded on Shark Tank versus all the ones that didn't. This does not speak to the outcome of the businesses. It speaks to those entrepreneurs that were able to sit in front of investors or stand there and actually get their money. And I want you to realize that there's a huge opportunity to understand something unique here, because in each of these 3 cases, they were present in 100% of the deals that got funded. Over thousands of presentations. But in every case, these three attributes were there. And why I'm bringing it up now is I know some people are going to be up in front of me in just a few minutes, and I want them to hear what I'm saying here, because maybe they want to modify their presentations a little bit. All right? Number one, in 100% of the cases, the deals that got funded, the entrepreneur was able to articulate the vision in 90 seconds or less. The idea was so blindingly simple that you could understand it in a minute. This is a cupcake. We put it in a jar. We ship it to people for $6.95. I get it. This is a groove book. I carved a groove in it so I can ship it at the price of a magazine. I get it. See what I'm saying? All right. 100% of the cases, 90 seconds or less. Number two, in every case, the entrepreneur, usually a team, over 80% of the time, were able to articulate why they were the right people to execute the business plan. What credentials, what confidence, what experience, why were they able to take an idea and turn it into a business? Very important. Present in 100% of the deals that got financed. Now this is far more sinister, this last point, because in front of me multiple times I have seen deals that are now like an isotope sizzling. The first two are present, sharks are fighting, everybody wants in, and then this happens. In 100% of the time the people got financed, they were able to answer every single question about their business model and their numbers with perfection. When you're sitting listening to an entrepreneur and you start to ask them, how much market share do you need to break even? What's your margins? How large is the market? How fast is it growing? Who's your number one competition? How much free cash flow do you think you'll make in the first 3 years? If you can't answer those questions, or you make a mistake, or you seem lost, you're screwed. This is really important. This last one's a killer. And I want you to remember that because I tell entrepreneurs today, if you're not good with numbers, bring someone who is. It's incredibly important. I want to talk about the economic environment we're in for a moment because you're going to be going into the workforce. I run about $1 billion in one of my companies, in a mutual fund company, so I have lots of data with me, and I don't want to make it complicated or long, but I want to talk to you about the environment you're going into and what's changed over the last 10 years. First of all, we're very lucky in North America. Even if you can't read this chart, I'll explain what it says. Our companies, the S&P 500, have record earnings as of yesterday, record cash flow, record profits, record stock buybacks, record free cash to distribute and dividend increases. Never in our lives has the S&P 500 made more money than it's making right now, ever. So that's the good news. You're going into a really interesting economy, even though we have lots of bad things to worry about. Pandemics, ISIS, Russia. Our companies have never made more money than they're making right now. That's good. Now, a lot of people say to me, gee, the bull market is long in the tooth. It's going to correct. It's going to come crashing down just when you're graduating. Take the emotion of it and let's go look at the data. I love to look at data. This is a chart of how many days between 15% corrections in the stock market. A 15% correction is painful. We are 714 days since the last 15% correction. There are many periods in history where thousands of days have gone by before the market corrects. I think we're in the third inning of a roaring bull market. That's how I'm investing, not only in small companies, but in large ones. I like to take the emotion out of data. The challenge everybody has in America today, particularly those that are retiring, is this: record low interest rates. Most of us, when we retired, would buy muni bonds or a 10-year government bond and make 5 to 6%. For 100 years, we could do that. And in the last few, the rates have dropped to below 3. But I want to show you something. I spend a lot of my time studying what economists are thinking is going to happen in the next 24 months. And what I see coming are rate hikes. About 30 basis points, 1/3% in the next 24 months. That's the general consensus globally of what's going to happen. So should we worry about that? If rates go up, will the market crash? Let's look at that. What happened way back in 1999 when rates were up, or more recently in 2004? Basically nothing. Rate hikes mean enhanced economic activity. Market goes down 6 or 7%, and within 10 months comes roaring back. Also good news for all of you. Because you want to be graduating into a growing economy. There are some changes, obviously, to this economy, and I'll tell you what they are. The demand, and I'll explain what this chart says. Institutional investors today have changed their minds about a lot of things, and one of them is the concept of dividends. Because of all the volatility from 2007, 2008, 2009, what's actually happened in the market is you can buy two kinds of companies, ones that do pay dividends and ones that don't. So I've taken the data and said, if you invested in the S&P 500 and bought all the companies, half of which pay dividends, half don't, you made about 10%. If you only bought the companies that were growing dividends, you made the same, 10%. But here's the difference. You had 40% less volatility in the price of those companies' stocks. So now all of a sudden institutional investors have put a huge premium on dividend-paying stocks because they don't want stocks to go up and down and are volatile, which is why Apple Computer, after Steve Jobs died, declared a dividend. They couldn't attract institutional investors because everybody wants to reduce the volatility. And that matters to you as well, because you're going to be asked to make more money than ever before when you get a job. Your managers, whether you start a company or whether you work within one, the pressure for you globally to provide returns that are based on cash flow are going to be unprecedented because people want safety now. That's what they care about. Let's talk about what it takes to be a great entrepreneur. I want to talk about balance in life first. This is not good news for some of you. If you're going to take the path of entrepreneurship, there will be no balance in your life. Not during the period you're growing your business. Ever. And I'll tell you why. You have to fall in love with your business. It's going to consume you. It will eat your hours alive. And if you don't have the passion to do that, your competitor will. And they will kick your ass because they're so in love with what they do. Now, I'm going to tell you a little story. It's difficult to hear, but it's the truth. I was teaching a class very much like this in an evening in a college recently when a young man up at the top at the end of the class at 9 o'clock at night put up his hand and said, "Can I ask you a question, Mr. O'Leary? I'm struggling with a problem, a personal problem." And I said, "Well, I'm not Dr. Phil, but let's hear it." He told me that his fiancée in the morning, it was a Friday, had told him that if he couldn't spend more time with her family, she was going to leave him. I said, "What consumes your time?" He said, "Well, I'm still in my last year here, but I've started a software company that provides compliance software to hedge funds. In the Boston region, there's tons of hedge fund companies. My subscription run rate is $5 million a year, and I'm running it out of my dorm." I said, "Wow, are you kidding? What's the problem?" He said, "Well, I have to work all day, all night. I got to go to school, and then I got to work on my coding. I've got 16 people working with me globally, coding with me. I'm busy. And I'm building this thing, and it's working. We're providing compliance reporting to the SEC, and we're making $5 million a year. But my fiancée is going to leave me." And I said, "Well, wait. Let's be pragmatic. Which one is easier to replace?" My point here is that if you choose to become an entrepreneur, You have to have a partner that understands the journey and the reason you're doing it. You're doing it to set yourself free one day. That's why you do it. And if you're ready to make that sacrifice, you may be on your way. I don't know what happened to that couple, but I'm guessing it didn't work out. And I'm sure he's still making money. Great entrepreneurs have a tremendous amount of knowledge of what they're selling. They know a lot about everything, but they better know a lot about what they're selling. You never want to be caught explaining yourself and not knowing your product. That's because you're so passionate, you're spending all your time doing it. That's exactly what matters. They put shareholders first. The minute you take someone else's money, you are definitely number 2 for the rest of your life. The reason you can raise capital is your shareholders understand that. This is incredibly important. In your life, if you're going to be an entrepreneur, you will be taking other people's money, and that goes way ahead of you. The great thing about entrepreneurship is if you're passionate and you're successful, you'll wake up one day rich. You won't really be going for the cash, it'll just happen to you. Everybody I talk to that's had success doesn't remember the day they became a millionaire. No idea. Not important to them. They remember winning. They remember building a business and being successful. Again, the pursuit of freedom manifests itself in passion. That's really what it's about. You have to love what you sell. If you don't bother. You have to love it more than that fiancé you just gave up. I know that's cruel, but it's true. It's the idea that you spend so much time at the beginning of the journey to get the freedom you want at the end. I've also noticed great entrepreneurs have used all the technology that's available today to make themselves more and more efficient. If you're working on your own business, you work about 14 to 15 to 16 hours a day. It'll just happen that way. And there's so much great technology to enhance what you do. And it's inexpensive, which is why our productivity keeps going up in America. That's really what's going on here, is people are using this stuff. The barrier to entry to start a new business is practically zero. You can do it online. Doesn't mean it's any easier than it was 10 years ago, but it's pretty interesting that you can do it for practically nothing. I want to talk to you about something else here that's unique to your generation. You're not just competing with America anymore, you're competing with everybody all around the world. Somebody in China right now wants to kick your ass. 250,000 engineers a year are graduating there. They're not copying us anymore. They're creating brand new technologies. Even if you have a product or service you're selling right here in this town, somebody somewhere else wants your market share. You can't think domestically, none of you. You have to think globally. Let me show you a picture. And it's a snapshot of market capitalization. For the first time in your lives and mine, there are more billion-dollar market cap companies outside of America than in it. While we've been growing at 2 to 3%, the rest of the world's been growing at 4 to 7%. So in every industry that we compete in, there is a giant competitor. In everything. It's a vicious game out there now. You don't even know the name of some of these companies, and they're bigger of many domestic offerings here. The first time ever. So when you graduate, think global, because your competitor certainly is, and they want your market share. Look at this image of Shanghai. It's a dump 11 years ago. Probably had no fish alive in that river. Look at it today. Do you have any idea how much capital it takes to do that? Billions of dollars. I looked at this image and said to myself, I bet you I could call the CEO of Otis Elevator and ask him a very simple question. Largest provider of elevators and escalators in the world? There must be a lot of elevators there. One of the great things about being a shark is everybody returns your call. So I asked him, how many elevators are you selling in America this year? He told me around the world there's 540,000 elevators installed annually. This year in America, 12,800 will be installed. In China, 420,000. Wow. That's competition. And I want you all to be very cognizant of it. I want to close with a few thoughts that may be controversial for you, but I have observed over a long career as an investor. Successful investments and failures, both of them. So I believe these, you may not. I hope what they'll leave you with is to think about them. They stimulate thought for you. That's what I'm here to do today, all right? Let's start with some of the basic premises of what makes a great entrepreneur and a great manager. First of all, employees are the core of a company, whether there's 2 or 200,000. And they are linked together by something called the culture, which you, if you're the CEO, create, guide, nurture, and move forward. That's the good news. If everybody's on board, linked in the culture, you get tremendous productivity beyond their salaries. But here's the downside. When you recognize somebody is going off course and no longer believes in the mission and are not on side anymore with your vision of the future, you have to fire them. You have to take them behind the barn and shoot them. Do you know why? Because they do tremendous damage inside the organism. And it's very hard to do that. But make no mistake about it, even if it's your mother, she's gone. The business has to survive. That's what matters. This sounds cruel and heartless. It's true. And the way you're going to find out is you're going to be weak and you're not going to do it. It's going to cause major havoc for you, and you're going to remember my speech today, and you're going to thank me when you have to make that tough decision. Unfortunately, in my life, I've fired thousands of people. It's hard every time, and I do it myself. And I explain to them why. I give them the best package I can, and I move on. Because I have to make money for my shareholders. That's what's important. This seems so obvious and people don't get it. The customer always comes first, above everything. And I'll tell you why I'm saying this to you. Because there's a really interesting change going on in the way people invest today. It turns out, and I'm going to give you some good examples, that service trumps price. I'm going to give you an example that everybody in this room understands. If you can create great customer service in your product, or your service, or whatever you're selling somebody, and that everything they need from your organization is provided, and you're top of the pack in customer service, you can charge an outrageous price over your competitors. What's a great example of that? Apple Computer. You pay 35% more for a Mac laptop than a Windows one. Why? It does exactly the same thing. You love the brand, you love the customer service, you like the way the store looks, you're comfortable knowing they're backing your back every time you need them. There's a theory today in venture capital and in private equity, you buy businesses with really weak customer service, do nothing except fix that, and raise prices 15%. Get a 33% IRR. It turns out around the world, customers want the path of least resistance. It's a little bit of secret sauce I want you to know. If you create an organization, spend a third of your time worrying about your customer service. Listen to what they say. If they're not happy, you're going to be unsuccessful. There's no question about that. Now something a little controversial. Most recently, I spoke at another business school, and we had quite a debate about this. When I want to buy a company and take a control position in it, 51%, I don't ask to meet with the CEO. I want to meet with the man or woman that is running sales. And I want to drink some good Burgundy with them. Take them out for dinner, get to know them a little bit, and ask them all about their challenges. In any organization in America, the person that knows most about the business, about the challenges, about the competitors, about the product, about the market, is the head of sales. They know everything. And what I like to do is spend a couple of days with them, and then I go meet the CEO. And if they know less than I do, the first person I fire when I own the company is the CEO. Who do I want to pay the most? Head of sales. I believe in an organization, the number one person in terms of compensation should be the head of sales. Should make the most money, always. Who has the hardest job? The head of sales. Who knows the most? The head of sales. Who determines the destiny of the company? The head of sales. That's how I run my organizations. I take the caps off and I let who's ever running sales have unlimited upside. I want them to be stinking rich. Why? Because that's the fuel that makes any business successful. And it's also the hardest job. I've also learned over a long career that everybody is replaceable. I love it when somebody says to me, oh, we can't get rid of that person. They're irreplaceable. I fire them right there. Everybody has to understand that whatever you do, somebody can do it better. You have to bring your A game in every single day. There's nothing unique about any one individual. What's unique is their passion, their ability to execute, to meet targets and exceed them. The minute you lose that ability, in capitalism, you're gone. It's a fair trade. The engine that makes you rich can take it all away from you. There are no guarantees. I think that's incredibly important. Now, the one that always gets me in trouble. In today's world, and perhaps even here, your professors are telling you that your responsibilities go beyond just making money for your shareholders. That you have a responsibility to society. That you're not just leading a business, that you're an organism that should solve many problems beyond just profit. I think that's crap. I think the DNA of a business is to make money for its shareholders. It is the job of the shareholders to take their profits and redistribute to any cause they wish after they receive their dividends or their profits. Your job is to go out into the world and understand who you serve. It is not your responsibility to solve all the society's problems. You pay taxes to a government to do that. Your job is to go to war every day and win. To win market share, to salt the earth your competitors walk on, to steal their customers, and to take their profits and win. That's your job. And to make profits for your shareholders so that they give you more capital to create more jobs, to be more successful, to pay more taxes, to provide the standard of living that we have in America today. Your job is not to solve everybody's problem. It's to solve your customers' problems, your shareholders' problems, your employees' problems. I'm very distressed when people tell me a business should give 1/3 of its profits to charity. That's outrageous. It should give all of it to its shareholders who then give to charity. Think of all the great things that are done today by the Bill Gates of the world, the Warren Buffetts of the world. The only reason they can do that is they made money for their shareholders. Don't get lost in this debate. Stay focused and true to the mission. Business is war. You have to win. And you take the spoils, which are profits, and you help your fellow man. But first, you make money. I'll give you the simplest case. On Shark Tank, we had a sock company come out and say, every sock we sell, we're going to give $1 to charity, to the homeless who need socks. Do you know why they're going to fail? It turns out that the price of socks are incredibly price sensitive. That if you're $1 more expensive than everybody else on the shelf, you're going out of business. It would have been much better to sell a better sock at a lower price, make profits, and then give it to the homeless. That's my point. Now, not everybody agrees. That's okay. Try it my way first. Get out there and win. Create businesses, create jobs, create profits, and don't let somebody take you off course. That's the essence of business. I want to leave you with a story. I have an 18-year-old son. My dad lives in Switzerland. He's 84. My mother died 6 years ago. He's alone. So I often will fly over there from Boston or wherever I am and take one of my daughter, my son, my wife, whoever wants to come. We leave on Friday night, have dinner with him on Saturday, get back on the plane on Sunday and fly back. So my son likes to do that. Recently, he got on the flight with me, and as he was getting on the galley, it's about a 6-hour flight to Geneva, he said to me the first time ever, "Dad, why is it when we get on this plane, I have to take a left and sit in the back, and you get to sit in the front with the good food, the big screens and all the movies?" I said, "Trevor, you don't have any money." Thank you very much for your time today. Now, I went over about 11 minutes, so I've got a couple of minutes for questions, but I want to keep us on schedule because we're going to look at 3 deals today. I will say one thing about the deals I'm going to look at quickly. I intentionally did not look at the business plans because I want you to know something about Shark Tank. We are not allowed to see the businesses first, ever. We have no knowledge of what they do, and that puts the pressure on the entrepreneur and the ones that are going to present to me today to be very concise on what they're doing. Remember, we looked at the 3 things that mattered? So if you thought I looked at your deals, I didn't. You better be really good at presenting them. That's what matters. And by the way, if somebody does contact you on Shark Tank, or you don't admit that they did, or they don't, they're kicked off the show, and so are you. So anybody comes running up to the street and says, "I want to talk to you about something I want to put on Shark Tank," I immediately say, "Please don't say anything to me, because I'll have to disclose you did, and you'll never make it on the show." But that's why it works. We do the discovery together. Does anybody have a question? Yes, sir.
Not everybody here is going to get a job or set out on their own. What would you tell kids who are going to hire an employer? What should they be looking for from an employer?
That's a great question, sir. In fact, in this cohort, the stats say that about 25% will start their own business. Of those, 20% will be very successful. So it's a hard road. But for those of you that decide to go and work for somebody else, understand you get a better balance of life. But every day you're in there, you have to help your boss or whoever you are make money. Otherwise, you're worthless. You're a cost. You'll get fired. Today in America, we're trying to cut costs every day. And the first place we look is which heads do we not need? The most expensive part of an organization after its input costs are people. If you're going to be an employee, be a good one. Make sure that you set your goals and you achieve them. It can be a great life, there's nothing wrong with it, and there's no dishonor in it. I was working once at an ice cream parlor when I was about 15 years old, my first real job. And on the second day, I was asked to scrape the gum off between the Mexican tiles on the floor. And I said to the woman who owned the store, it was called Magoo's Ice Cream Parlor, "You didn't hire me to scrape gum, you hired me to scoop ice cream." And this girl in the shoe store across the way that's looking at me, I don't want to see her scraping the gum. And she said, "What are you talking about? I own this store. I'll do anything I want with you. Get down on your knees and scrape that gum. And I said, I'm not doing it. She said, you're fired. Last job I ever had. I owe that woman everything. I don't like to work for people. Many of you in here, I hope, inherit that. There's nothing wrong with it, but if you want to control your own destiny, you work for yourself. That's how it works. I'm trying to inspire those of you who are on the tipping point. Take the chance, you're young. Go for it. There's nothing better than being able to wake up in the morning 10 years or 20 years from now and do whatever you like. It's about freedom. That's what matters. I'm not saying being an employee is bad, but believe me, being an entrepreneur is better. I'm a little biased. Any other questions? Yes, sir. I'll repeat the question. What happens to the deals that don't make it on TV? 300 deals are taped, about 230 air. Sometimes when you get in front of the lights, you lose it. We have a psychiatrist there at the set. Bad things happen sometimes. Some people can't take rejection. It's real life. They're so convinced they're right, they don't get a deal, or they collapse and they blow it, or they don't know their numbers and I have to shoot them. All these things happen. Can you imagine getting that chance on Shark Tank and you don't know your numbers? You should be thrown in jail. One more. Yes, sir. I love that thing.
So one of the main things you said was that you have to love what you do. A lot of people that come on Shark Tank, you've told them that your love for your product is blinding you. So how do you determine that a business is failing, that you're not just giving up too soon, or you're not passionate enough? The difference between the two.
I didn't get the last part. Not passionate enough or not what?
Not giving up or giving up too soon. Because you tell a lot of people, just give up on it. This idea is just...
Oh, I see. Yeah. You know, I get a lot of flack for, telling the truth. I'm the only shark that tells the truth. Because think about your tenure as an entrepreneur. You have X number of years. It breaks my heart to see someone spend months and then years and then all of their family's money on a really stupid idea. It's better to face the truth and give up that pursuit and start another one. The great thing about entrepreneurship is if you fail, you try again. But after 3 years, if you're not making any money, it's a hobby, it's not a business. Some people can't take it. I couldn't care less. You know what's going to happen? Reality is going to bite you in the hiney anyways. You're lucky you met me. I've saved you a year. That's why they call me Mr. Wonderful.